Hello guys, welcome to Monitoring and Evaluation Made Simple. I'm your host, Coach Alexander. If you're here for the very first time, please don't forget to subscribe to this channel because I regularly post updates. So now, today we're going to be considering key performance indicators. How do you monitor performance of a project manager? So did you know that you can actually monitor how good somebody is using clearly defined key performance indicators? A lot of organizations are doing this around the world because it has an impact on the strategic plan that they are implementing. It also has an impact on the project. So it's always good to gauge whether your staff are actually doing the right thing, are actually performing to the peak level. So this is what we're going to be doing so that at the end of the day, you can apply it in your own organization and even in your personal life. So as usual in this tutorial, I have, because this is quite a long tutorial, so I have timestamps which I always talk about. I know you've been hearing me talk about it all the time, and it's for good reason. You know, these timestamps make it easier for you to navigate to the part of this video that you really want to enjoy. So at this point in time, I want to just outline how we're going to proceed. So the first thing we're going to do is understand the role of the project manager. What is their role really in an organization? If you're a project manager, you need to understand this. If you want to be a project manager, you really need to understand this clearly. Even if you want to recruit a project manager, you have to understand this. Then we're going to understand what are key performance indicators. I'm not going to even talk much about this because I have many videos on this channel that discusses about key performance indicators. Then what are the key performance indicators for a manager? So it may not just be a project manager, but this could even be universal sometimes because depending on whichever sector you're working in, if you're a manager, these are some of the things you need to keep in mind in terms of tracking performance, okay? And how are they measured? That is critical. Okay, so now we want to understand the role of a project manager in detail. What is it they do? Why are they there? All right. Sometimes I look at these positions and I ask myself, are these positions just created for the sake of it? Okay, at least I used to ask that, but right now, because of my 10 years of M&E, I fully understand what a manager does, okay? So I want you to understand how important they are in an organization and also why their salaries are higher. I mean, even though they're on the higher end of the hierarchy, they surely deserve it, okay? Okay, so their important role is, in my view, it's a mouthful. Okay, there are so many things they do, and it can all be summed up to one thing, which I'll show you later, but there are so many things they do. So, for instance, they are very important when it comes to the planning of the project. You know, the planning is the most important part of any project around the world because there you're trying to plan what you need for the project, what you're going to be doing, how you're going to be doing it, all right, who you're going to use, you know, and after what time period. You see, all those things get into the planning stage. So it's always good to do the planning the right way. I've always talked about it. It's always good to do the planning the right way. So we're talking of so many kinds of plans: activity planning, resource planning. And when we talk of resource planning, we're not just talking about the financial resources. We're also talking about the kind of people you're going to use when you're doing this activity. Okay, who are you going to use? Who are you going to employ? And how much time do you have? Because you know, time is also a resource. So all that needs to be quantified. All right. And also developing schedules. estimating time. Most importantly, and I think money is always the most important part of every project, it's the cost estimation. Okay, how much money will you put into this project? How much money should be put in? Now, we've got overheads when it comes to implementation of projects. Sometimes you underestimate, sometimes you can overestimate, but it's not good management practice if you do either of the two, because from experience, with your technical know-how, you should be able to have something that is within the range. Okay. There's also the developing a budget. There's also documentation, creating charts and schedules. So you can see that actually they don't do this alone, of course. They work together with different staff, junior staff. But the whole point is that they are the people who have the technical know-how to guide their subordinates on what works best. Another thing that they do is undertaking risk analysis. Okay. And this is so important, guys. And I don't know, some organizations, like, okay, where I came from, when I come from an NGO background. We used to do this risk analysis, but I can tell you from my experience that it was just being done because it was more like a requirement. But now you can really feel why it's important to do a risk analysis, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic, which has hit so many businesses around the world so hard. Okay. So now these kind of risk analysis are actually supposed to help you determine how the business will survive in the event you have such pandemics happen. Now, I want to believe many businesses may have done this, but reality is showing that many businesses around the world, guys, around the world, from what I heard, even on, because I listen to a lot of BBC and also a bit of CNN, many businesses couldn't even survive for a month. So, meaning that they did the risk analysis maybe, but they didn't really anticipate that the problem would be to such a great magnitude where they would have to be on their need pleading the government for support. So that's what it is. So the manager is critical here, and they also help in managing the risks and creating issues that can mitigate these risks. My favorite part of all of this is the monitoring and evaluation component. So managers, project managers, okay, so one thing I want to tell you is that the project manager in organizations, what they do is they'll have a project manager that has experience also in M&E. So I believe that every manager out there has to have some understanding of what monitoring and evaluation is, because that will help them in tracking activities. Okay, so now in the event where an organization may not have the financial muscle to employ someone dedicated to M&E, it's very important that the project manager they have actually understands these things well. Very important is team leadership. Okay. So sorry, I'm taking quite long on helping you I understand the role of a manager, because you discover that these are interlinked. The KPIs of monitoring performance are actually interlinked with their roles. Okay, so I'll later explain this as we go to the next slides. But a leader is somebody who is steering others, to do the work, not forcing them, not threatening them, but steering them, motivating them. Okay, that is a good leader. A lot of times we, like around the world, I've seen this a lot. Leaders like to be bullies. Unfortunately, they want to bully their subordinates so that the subordinates can be fear, instill fear in your subordinates so that they can be afraid of you, respect you, and do the work. But that's not a leader. And actually, if a leader divides the organization, then that one is not a good leader. So imagine a manager needs to lead the subordinates the right way. And you see that they'll perform better if it's really being done the right way. Okay, so as you can see, there are the roles that they play. So these are explanatory roles, but unless you want me to explain this, I can maybe explain to you what controlling quality means. They also help in controlling quality, and quality, I mean, it's subjective sometimes, but basically when we talk of quality, it's against a certain standard. So a manager knows that standard. If subordinates, if the organization as a whole is not achieving that standard of quality, then it's below quality. Okay, it's below the standard. Okay, so the ultimate role, guys, lumping all those things together, I was giving you nitty gritties, but when you lump everything together, you discover that the project manager is there to ensure that the project is being implemented as planned. That's all. That's ultimately his role. But you see, on paper, it's not just about going to check whether activities are going the right way. It's not just about that, guys. Because for you to have those activities implemented, there are certain things you should be doing. There are certain things staff should be doing. There are certain things the environment should be like. For instance, if in your planning you know that, okay, this road I'm going to construct will be done in 6 months, it surely can happen in 6 months, but that is assuming that the political situation in the country is calm. Because if it's a war-torn country, then you can't have that road tarred within 6 months. The reason is simple, because if government is funding that road and there's political instability, then resources will be diverted. And this is what we are seeing even today. The COVID-19 pandemic has messed up so many things. I'm sorry I'm talking about the COVID-19 so much, but I want you to see what it has done and how it relates to this. The COVID-19 has shut down many economies, and things are stagnating. So if government was supposed to release money to fund road construction projects, those monies will be delayed. But you see, government can't completely divert those resources to buying face masks or employing more doctors, because the challenge they have is that if they don't have the roads constructed, that has a negative economic impact on not only their citizens, but even if this road is used as a way of trade becomes a huge problem. Okay, and as you can see, people are scared to even go on lockdown because they know shutting down the economy will mean loss in jobs and so many things. It has a rippling effect. Okay, so now let's go to the key performance indicator. So how do you measure the performance of a manager? You could be a manager right now. This can help you. It can help you at a personal level improve your performance as a manager. Or if you are a director and you want to gauge the performance of your manager, these key performance indicators can help you. If you're a subordinate and you want that promotion, yeah, this can also help you, um, you know, meet the requirements. Okay, so before I dive into this, just briefly, I know you may have an idea of what key performance indicators are, but for those who don't know, key performance indicators are variables that measure whether progress is indeed being achieved. So we have all these examples: average net income of farmers, crop productivity, percentage of people living on less than $1 a day. All these are examples of indicators. So an indicator just helps you quantify. It helps you get a sense of whether indeed you're moving in the right direction or not. So these are the key performance indicators. So now, how do you gauge whether a project manager really is doing the job the right way? So first of all, you have to realize that if you're going to use KPIs, they should be smart. Okay, we've talked about this. What smart means: specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, time based. Look at my other videos on key performance indicators to really understand what it is I'm talking about here. Okay, so like I said, how do you do this? I mean, it all comes down to how do you actually measure whether somebody is performing the right way. So before I go any further, I want to tell you guys that this course I'm running on Udemy has gotten very positive reviews. I really want you to enroll in it. It has a coupon code. It's called special price. Okay, if you go to Udemy right now and you find that if Udemy hasn't given you the discount of $10.99, if you find something higher, you can use this coupon code, enroll in the course, and derive the maximum benefit. It's a good course, guys. I really want you to enroll in it. Okay, so back to what we are talking about. 9 important key performance indicators for a project manager. Okay, so these are the ones. So the first 5 are, okay, so number 1, okay, so the first one is the level of satisfaction from project beneficiaries and the project team. So what do we mean here? You know, there are these surveys that measure how satisfied project beneficiaries are, okay, in relation to what you're doing for them. So if your project, for instance, is there for, like I always talk about the road construction project. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I always talk about the road construction project. So if it's there and you have an opportunity to interact with the project beneficiaries, they'll be able to see that indeed you are, or what can I say, you are actually fulfilling what the project requires. You are fulfilling your mandate. And most of all, they are seeing that you're taking their concerns into consideration. Okay. So there are certain things that are done that should be benefiting those beneficiaries. These beneficiaries see this. And if you're doing it the wrong way, they'll also see it. So what these surveys do, they just try to find out from these various beneficiaries, because they are the stakeholders, they just try to find out whether indeed so it has been managed correctly. Okay. And it can get ugly sometimes, because like for instance, that road construction project can lead to people being displaced. But the question is, even if they were displaced, were they well compensated? Okay. Were you able to get their concerns where they had problems. Okay, it's all a part of management, really. You can't make everyone happy, but you can at least show that you are a good project manager, a good implementer, because you're taking all the stakeholders' concerns into consideration and they can rate you at the end of the day. Okay. Then also, it's your project team. The project team can rate you. They can gauge whether indeed they are satisfied with the way you have been managing them. Okay. You cannot say, no, you guys rated me wrongly, but they themselves see, they can see for themselves whether you're taking their concerns, you know, into the whole picture. So the project team, what usually a manager should be doing is really showing leadership when it comes to coordination of activities. If you have a team member asking you for support, okay, he's requested for your support and you're not giving them that support, then you'll be rated poorly. So they always see these things. Another way, another key performance indicator is your own self-evaluation score as a project manager. So now during performance appraisal, which I'm going to come to after this point, sometimes I don't know about how it is with you if you are working, but the way it was with me is that you are given the opportunity to even rate yourself. Okay, so that self-evaluation score, for obvious reasons, if you rate yourself poorly, then you have a low score. But if you rate yourself highly, you can have a good score. But that is not to say you should take advantage of this scoring mechanism. It's always good to be honest, because even if you rate yourself highly, your supervisor will give an objective rating on what they themselves have seen. And then based on your score and their score, they'll come up with an average. So another way, another key performance indicator is your performance appraisal. So now the whole performance appraisal, some appraisals have been designed in such a way that you can come up with some kind of overall score. So if you are doing very well, your score could be 90% to, it can be a range. It can be a 90% to a 100% score. Okay. Or if you're doing well, good, it could be between 70 to 80%. Okay. If you're doing fairly, it could be 50 to 60%. But if you're doing poorly, it could be 30%. So these scores have ranges. So that's also a key performance indicator in itself, because you can set a target that I want to have a score at the end of the year of 90%. And that way people will understand, okay, this project manager indeed is hardworking and is reaching the targets. Another indicator is level of achievement on key performance indicators that can be controlled. All right. So now if you have a project, right? You're running a project, you obviously have all these indicators. So now there are some indicators which you can't control, but there are indicators which you can control. Take for instance, like you are tasked to do trainings, all right, in a certain province or in a certain community. And the organization actually sets targets for you that you need to have 100 trainings in 2 months. Okay. That is a target you can achieve, because it all depends on you. It all depends on how well you plan, whether resources are available. But of course, those resources are available. It's just about you planning, executing those plans, getting the money, training people, reporting on those trainings, and it ends there. Okay, so it's something you can control. It's a target you can achieve. if you want to. But when it comes to things you can't control weather, okay? And which is why if you set a target that I want my crop production to increase by 100%, there are elements of that goal that you can't control. Okay, there are elements in it. You can't control the weather because if there is poor weather, even if you set a target, you're so convinced that I'm going to achieve 100% increase in production of my crop. If the weather goes bad, it's nothing, it's something you can't control. So really, that's why there's a debate sometimes whether these are indicators we should really be measuring. Why not just focus on things we can control, which is a good point. Yeah. So, but that's a debate for another day. So, if you're able to achieve your key performance indicators, especially those you can control, then that's a good indication of you doing well as a project manager. I like this one. The fifth one is talking about the M&D systems audit. For those of you who don't know what an M&D system is, it's simply the whole monitoring and evaluation system in an organization. When we talk of a system, we're talking about tools, we're talking about guidelines, we're talking about resources, everything. Okay. So now the manager plays a very important role in managing the M&D system because if it's not managed well, it will not achieve its intended purpose. You will not be able to use it to further your learning on whether the project is achieving its goals or not. Okay, so it's always important to make sure that your system is robust. So now what is the M&D systems audit? This audit is conducted by consultants, okay? Or it could be an internal audit conducted by you, but in this case, it's done by independent people in order to determine whether your system is performing and functioning well. So if you have a high score, it means that your system is doing well. But if it's a low score, it's not doing well. And what the consultant does or independent person does, they'll check everything. They'll check whether the budget is being done correctly, whether the tools being used have been designed correctly and implemented correctly. All those things have to be done the right way, because if they're not, it will definitely reflect badly on you who is a project manager. So you have to keep that score high. And what can help, like other audits, what can help is for you to do an internal systems audit so that you can prepare for the audit that will be done by independent consultants. Turnaround time in beating deadlines. Okay, this is a very good one. You know, if you're working with donors, okay, or away from now we are away from the road construction project. Imagine you're working with donors who are funding huge amounts of money and they demand that you should be reporting on time. It is not good if you are reporting late to these donors because they also have decisions that they need to make, and it can also affect how quickly your money comes, because some donors won't release money unless the M&D report is ready. So it's important as a project manager to ensure that your time, you're always meeting the deadlines. And that can also affect how well you're performing as a manager. If you're not beating these deadlines or meeting them, then indeed so you're not performing well. But if you're meeting the deadlines, then you're doing the right thing as a manager. Percentage errors in M&D report as compared to the threshold. So What this is simply saying is that if you present an M&D report, how authentic is that report? What is the quality? Because it's not good if this report has so many errors, and we're talking about grammatic errors, or we're talking about statistical errors. We need to ensure that these reports are cleaned properly. One thing you can do, because as a manager, you can't do everything, you need to learn to delegate these things. Try to have someone proofread that report before you finally have to read it. Okay, have that person read it 2 or 3 times. Let them put their comments, and then you should read it 2 or 3 times until it is a clean, powerful report. Okay. Okay, so this percentage errors can help you determine how good or how well your project manager is performing. If you are a project manager, it can help you determine whether you are performing well. Then client feedback in the conducting of M&D workshops. If you do workshops, at the end of those workshops, what happens? The people in attendance give you the feedback. Okay, that feedback can be good or bad, but it works to your advantage if it's positive feedback. Okay, because if you have good feedback, then that is showing that as a project manager, you are performing well. Then perception levels of donors. Okay, how do donors perceive what the work you are doing? All right, how do they perceive the project? Do they feel the project is actually achieving its intended goals? I'm telling you, if the donors don't feel that way, if they are not feeling the project, if it's not touching them, then your performance is not really, it's below par. And believe it or not, you need to please the donors, you need to please the stakeholders, but you don't need to bootlick them, bootlick them. No. But you simply just need to do the right thing at the right time and in the right way. Okay, so guys, there's another course I'm promoting. It's called the How to Set Up a Monitoring and Evaluation System Step by Step. This is my best course I've developed to date. It is over 3 hours long, and it covers most of the things that will fully equip you as an M&D personnel in your career. So I really want you to enroll in this course. If you are not going to enroll in the key performance indicator course, enroll in this course, guys. Get the coupon below and derive the maximum benefit from it. Okay, so guys, that marks the end of this tutorial. I know it was somewhat long, but every minute spent was worth it. So remember, guys, safety first, protect yourself from the COVID-19 pandemic by following closely the guidelines. Until we meet again, see you on the other side. Bye.